There's a formula in action cinema that almost never fails: the unlikely duo. You take two characters who are complete opposites, like the loudmouth and the straight-laced guy, and watch the magic unfold. Just think of Rush Hour with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker, or Men in Black with Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. The chemistry between them is so good that more often than not, we end up caring more about their banter and arguments than the actual mission. Now, imagine taking that same idea and dropping it into a superhero cartoon. With a twist, instead of two cops, we get an impulsive teenager and a sarcastic alien AI that's literally fused to his chest. That's the heart of Max Steel. The 2013 reboot understood that the real strength of the story wasn't just in the fight scenes, but in the almost brother-like bond between Max and Steel. The teasing, the silly arguments, and the loyalty they build are the true core of the show, turning what could have been just another action series into something way more fun and memorable.
Max.
And I'm Sydney.
I'm Max Steel.
No, you're not.
Intech is in the middle of the desert, facing a gigantic alien ship that immediately opens fire with a devastating barrage. The team has no choice but to retreat to their base. There, Commander Forge drops a bombshell. The invaders, led by the galactic conqueror Machino, are Ultralinks, the same species as Steel. The poor guy is furious, feeling completely betrayed. To make matters worse, the team discovers the ship has an impenetrable shield, just as Machino decides to send an army to Earth. And it's not just any army. It's Ultralinks possessing N-Tech vehicles and even dinosaur fossils, creating a horde of bizarre monsters. And guess who's on the alien side? Dredd, who appears on the ship as Machino's new best friend. With no way to breach the shield, Forge hatches a desperate plan. He and Max combine into a new jetpack mode and manage to brute force their way through the barrier. Inside, they find the shield generator but come face to face with Dredd, who's received a power upgrade from Machino. The villain gives them a serious beatdown and tries to convince Steel to join the dark side. Steel pretends to agree, attacking Forge, but it's all a ruse. He absorbs Dredd's negative energy and channels it directly into the generator. The whole thing implodes, taking Dredd with it. With the ship about to explode, Forge makes a heroic sacrifice. He shoves Max and Steel out just before the blast. The team can only watch in shock as the debris falls from the sky.
Steel, let's go!
Max and Steel are in freefall, but are rescued by Commander Forge, who reveals he's Max's uncle and an old acquaintance of Steel's. Inside the jet, Forge is furious that they fled N-Tech, but explains the situation. Steel has lost his memory and is now permanently linked to Max to regulate his turbo energy. The orders are clear: head to the base for tests, and most importantly, don't tell Molly, Max's mom, anything. Speaking of whom, she's already suspicious and secretly calls Forge. Meanwhile, the villain Dredd is enraged because the turbo energy signal has simply vanished off the map. Back home, Max tries to hide the suit, only making his mother more suspicious. The next morning, Steel shows off a new trick, a holographic camouflage mode that disguises the superhero suit with Max's normal clothes.
Whoa, not bad if I do say so myself.
At school, Steel plays Cupid, revealing he fixed the phone of Sydney, Max's crush, and even added a playlist. The plan works. She's thrilled and asks him out on a date. Later, Max goes to a secret N-Tech base, where he undergoes a battery of tests and unlocks new powers, like turbo flight and turbo strength modes. Later, the date with Sydney is interrupted in the most classic way possible. A fire elemental and an earth elemental attack the city. Max gets Sydney to safety just as Forge and Molly arrive, and Molly isn't messing around. She whips out a rocket launcher, while Max, in turbo strength mode, fights the monsters. The fire elemental grabs Steel, and the earth elemental pulls Max into a sinkhole. Max wakes up in a high-tech lair, face to face with the masked Miles Dredd, who reveals his plan: to drain all of Max's turbo energy for himself.
That's about to be mine, thanks to you, my new best friend.
With Max captured, Commander Forge orders a rescue, but Entech has no clue where he is. Max wakes up in a chair and comes face to face with Miles Dread, who has used a bit of turbo energy to revitalize himself. Meanwhile, the Entech team finally tracks Max to Transhuman Industries, but discovers the building is a veritable fortress. The only opening is a small maintenance duct, and Steel is sent to infiltrate. Inside, Dread tells Max his story. He was a colleague of Max's father, Jim McGrath. 16 years ago, Dread tried to steal Jim's turbo energy, but it went wrong, causing an explosion that fused the device to his body and supposedly killed Max's father. Steel manages to break in and rescue Max, but during their escape, Dread captures the already weakened Ultralink. Max returns to Entech and reveals the villain's identity, leaving Forge stunned as he thought Dread had died in the explosion. Now with Steel in his possession, Dread uses him to power a massive device atop the THI Tower, which begins draining the life force of citizens through their THI-branded tech gadgets. Entech forces storm the building, facing Dread's robo-dogs and the elementors. Max fights his way in, taking on a transformed Mr. Knot, while Berto arrives in a giant mech suit to help.
Oh boy. I may have to stay?
Max finally confronts a superpowered Dread to save Steel. Realizing the villain feeds on his power, Max has a crazy idea. Overload him. He unleashes a massive, uncontrolled blast of turbo energy. The overload causes Dread to explode, launching his flaming remains into space. With the city saved, Max is hailed as a public hero and earns the name Max Steel. As Forge and Molly deal with their secret organization's newfound fame, Dread's remains are collected in orbit by a ship sent by Mr. Knot. In a random alley, Max and his alien partner Steel are taking a beating from a gang of ninjas. To turn the tables, Max activates Turbo Strength mode, grows to a massive size, and lays the smackdown on everyone. But suddenly, a giant purple slime monster appears and swallows him whole. Plot twist: it was all a training simulation, and Commander Forge chews him out, telling him to use his brain more and his brawn less. After the lecture, Max heads to a school field trip at Transhuman Industries, or THI, with his friends Kirby and Sydney. At THI, we learn that the new CEO is none other than Max's mom, Molly McGrath. Her first order of business is to fire a villainous scientist named Dr. Xander. The guy storms out swearing revenge, and moments later, a chemical hazard alarm goes off. A purple gas begins to spread, turning everyone it touches into purple-skinned zombies, including Max's friends and, to make matters worse, his own mother.
Mom? Sydney? Oh, no.
Forced to fight the zombified crowd, Max has Steel hack the company's system. Steel discovers that Xander's lab is the source of the outbreak. Max goes turbo and heads there, only to find Xander transformed into a disgusting monster named Toxon. And the reason for his rage? He lost his pet goldfish. Max activates Turbo Strength mode again, and in the middle of the fight, discovers that a fire hose melts Toxon. Meanwhile, Steel creates an antidote using Xander's goldfish as the final ingredient. The cure spreads, and everyone returns to normal. In the sewers, a mutated Toxon and his now talking evil pet fish plot their revenge. After stopping a bank robbery, Max Steel becomes an overnight celebrity. Watching the news, Miles Dread uses the report to triangulate the hero's origin, Copper Canyon High School. At school, Max and his friend Sydney find their other friend Kirby stuffed in a locker by a bully named Butch. Suddenly, Max gets an alert from his uncle, Commander Forge, who chews him out again for showing off, warning that it could put everyone in danger. As if on cue, a fire breaks out at the school. Forge gets Max to the scene and tells him to help, but without transforming. Inside the burning building, Max finds Sydney and the bully Butch passed out. Using his super strength, he carries them both outside just as the ceiling collapses. A firefighter sees the scene and assumes Butch was the hero. The crowd cheers, and the bully, of course, takes the credit. However, Dread, disguised as a firefighter, realizes Max is the real hero. Mistakenly thinking Butch is Max Steel, Dread sends his robots to capture him in the cafeteria. A gas bomb knocks everyone out, but Max activates turbo mode and secretly defeats the robots. When everyone wakes up, guess what? They credit Butch again. Dread finally realizes his mistake and reveals his new super-powered body. Later, he attacks the school bus, revealing he knows Max's identity and blows up the bridge. Max activates turbo flight mode to save the students and then goes in for the fight. Dread can now absorb turbo energy, but Max switches to strength mode and uses Steel to cause a landslide, burying burying the villain. Dredd escapes, but Sydney clarifies she was just helping Butch with his studies and holds Max's hand. Now, Max understands the importance of keeping his identity a secret, but the problem is, Dredd already knows everything.
This isn't over. It's just the beginning.
At the N-Tech base, tech genius Berto introduces his new robot, Citro. After a demonstration full of flips and tricks, the robot reveals an arsenal of weapons that would make Rambo jealous. However, a silly argument between Max and Steel over hero names causes Max's energy to overload Citro, which explodes. As Max apologizes, mysterious green slime creatures begin to invade the base. Later, Berto and Steel, who have become best friends while fixing the robot, sideline Max. They unveil a new, much larger Citro. Suddenly, the alarm blares. The slime creatures attack, and the system detects an intruder heading for a maximum security vault. Citro goes haywire, attacks Berto, and flees because someone stole its remote control. The robot is now immune to N-Tech's weapons and Max's energy. With no choice, Max activates turbo strength mode to fight the machine. And who shows up to crash the party? Toxon, the slime monster, who reveals himself as Citro's new master. He uses the robot to steal the Tox bomb, a bioweapon he wants to use to cure himself. As Toxon escapes, Berto gives Max the new turbo bike, an awesome vehicle that can handle his energy. The two pursue Citro to an abandoned refinery. In the final battle, Berto uses a holographic tool to grab the bomb and disarm it at the last second. Max, in turbo flight mode, helps take down Toxon. Back at the base, Commander Forge drops a bombshell. Toxon was a former N-Tech scientist because someone stole its remote control. We open at an amusement park, with Max McGrath trying to win a prize for his friend Sydney, but the game is clearly rigged. Out of nowhere, a massive whirlpool forms in the ocean and starts sucking in a cargo ship like a bathtub drain. Max makes a lame excuse, disappears, and transforms into the hero Max Steel. He flies to the docks and tries to use the ship's anchor to stop it from being swallowed by the sea. A brilliant idea, if not for the absurd force pulling the chain, which yanks Max Steel along with it. He manages to break the chain, but it's too late. The ship vanishes completely without a trace. Back at the N-Tech base, Commander Forge is discussing the ship's disappearance with agents Jefferson and Kat. No one knows what happened. Steel mentions detecting hyperhydrogenated water at the scene. Whatever that is, Forge, acting like an angry dad, takes Max and Steel off the case and sends them to a weapons test. During the simulation, they're attacked by drones firing rocks and water. Max notices the clay from the rocks clog the hose and turn to cement, a clue deliberately left by Forge. Later, Max's science class goes to a THI rocket launch supervised by his mom, Molly. During the countdown, a tsunami the size of a skyscraper appears on the horizon. The launch is aborted, and everyone scrambles to evacuate. Max becomes Max Steel again and saves his mom's car from being swept away by the wave. The tsunami engulfs the launch pad, and when the water recedes, where's the rocket? Gone. Max and Steel stumble upon a crashed alien ship in the middle of a frozen wasteland, but Forge and the N-Tech team arrive moments later to spoil the fun. The ship is protected by an energy shield that apparently only Steel can pass through. Reluctantly, he phases through the barrier and deactivates the shield. The team enters, grabs a black briefcase with a red object inside, and, in a major betrayal, plants a bomb, abandons Max and Steel, and blows up the ship. Betrayal level, expert. Meanwhile, Troy Winter and his gang, who are secretly working with N-Tech, ambush Forge's convoy. After a short chase, the N-Tech vehicles are neutralized. Winter himself boards the main transport, defeats the soldiers, and steals the briefcase.
I've got the package. Excellent, Mr. Winter.
Back at N-Tech, Max confronts Forge, who refuses to talk. Steel, feeling a strange connection to the ship, creates a holographic reconstruction and discovers the pilot's seat is a perfect fit for him. The conclusion is obvious. The ship was his. At that exact moment, Max's mom calls from her lab at THI. She found a similar red object and is under attack. Max and N-Tech rush over, but Troy Winter has already arrived, looking for the missing component. A fight breaks out with a mysterious ninja, who is actually Max's mom in a combat suit. Troy escapes, and Max pursues him on his turbo bike in a chase worthy of Fast and Furious. Troy manages to get away, leaving Max face to face with the Fire and Earth elementors, who have arrived as backup. The night starts off like a horror movie. Two security guards hear a noise in a lab. One goes to check and finds the room torn apart by giant claws. A dark, spiky creature appears, introduces itself as Extroyer, and starts chasing the guy, bursting into flames in the middle of the hallway. N-Tech agents, including Max and Steel, arrive to investigate. Kat shows the recording of the creature, which Steel doesn't recognize. Berto analyzes a chip and discovers it was a secret project from when Dredd ran THI. Molly calls and explains the lab was just one of Dredd's many front companies. Berto finds that all the labs were attacked by the same monster, and Forge orders a stakeout. On watch, Max and Steel see a figure climbing a building. It's not the monster yet, but a man with purple crystals growing on his body. He transforms into the creature and attacks Max.
What is he doing?
After a quick fight, the building explodes, and the beast escapes. Steel figures it out immediately. It's Troy Winter, now fused with an Ultralink. Back at the base, Forge is furious that Max and Steel acted on their own. Steel demands answers about his origin, but Forge just says there are millions of Ultralinks out there. Meanwhile, Troy, who can now absorb animal abilities, gets a tip from an N-Tech trader about Dredd's next tech delivery, but the trader is captured shortly after by Dredd's henchman, Jason Knott. Troy, as Extroyer, confronts Dredd's Earth Elementor in a warehouse. After winning, he faces Dredd himself, seeking revenge. Spoiler, it doesn't go well. Dredd thrashes him and reveals he has bigger plans.
That will fetch me, Max.
Max and Steel track Troy to a desert complex where Dredd and Knott are also present. Dredd reveals he used Troy as bait to lure Max and use his energy to power a new turbo-nuclear missile. The missile is launched, and Max goes after it in flight mode. Troy, now a giant spider, attacks Max on top of the missile. Steel short-circuits the spider, which explodes. Max manages to divert the missile into space, where it detonates safely. Dredd got the data he wanted and plans to build more. Troy falls into the ocean and, to top it off, possesses a shark. We open at a flea market, where Max's friend Kirby finds a pair of nunchucks at a stall. The mood is tense. A muscle-bound thug is threatening the shop owner, an old man, over a legendary sword. The shopkeeper swears he doesn't have it, and in the middle of the commotion, he makes the swap of the century. He takes the nunchucks from Kirby's backpack and puts a boxed katana in its place. Smooth move. Later, Max discovers the sword, and Kirby, completely confused, takes it to an alley to throw it away. But curiosity gets the better of him. He unsheathes the blade, which glows and possesses him with the spirit of an ancient ninja named Murakami. The possessed Kirby beats up some bullies and then goes on a rampage through the city. The muscle-bound henchman reports his failure to his boss, Mr. Knott, who reveals the weapon is the cursed sword of Murakami, and that he wants it for his own plans, without the knowledge of his master, Dredd. Seeing the chaos, Max becomes Max Steel and confronts Kirby, who is now an incredible fighter.
Whoa! Hey, buddy! Take it easy, would ya?
Because it's glowing.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant.
N-Tech arrives with the shopkeeper, who is a descendant of the sorcerer who cursed the sword. He explains that Murakami's evil spirit is trapped inside and possesses whoever wields it. Knott attacks in an invisible ship, knocks Kirby out, and steals the sword, unleashing a dreadnought robot to fight. The N-Tech jet is shot down, leaving Max alone on the falling ship. Berto comes up with a plan. Since Steel is an alien, he's stronger than the curse. Max needs to create a turbo sword to break the original. Max links with Steel, forges the turbo sword, and, in a duel with Kirby, shatters the cursed blade. The ninja spirit vanishes and Kirby wakes up, thinking it was all a dream.
I just had the most awesome dream!
In his lair, Dredd punishes Knott and the henchmen for their failure. In a maximum security prison, the villain Toxon and his pet Fishy are playing chess when a guard decides to taunt them. Bad idea. Annoyed, Toxon reveals he has secretly regenerated his powers. He unleashes a blast of toxic energy, melts his cell, and escapes, vowing revenge on Max Steel. As the N-Tech team investigates the breakout, Max's partner Steel becomes obsessed with a superhero cartoon called Hero Man. Totally inspired, he uses Max's mom's credit card to buy a ton of hero merchandise and designs a new flight mode for Max, the Super Flight, complete with a cape and comically exaggerated fake muscles. It looks ridiculous.
What is this?
Meanwhile, Toxon starts a massive chemical fire to steal a volatile substance. Max and Steel arrive, and after failing with water, Steel activates super strength mode and puts out the fire with dirt. The team discovers the fire was just a diversion. Berto analyzes the stolen substance and realizes Toxon plans to poison Copper Canyon. As the team rushes to protect the city's water supply, a yellow, toxic rain begins to fall. Toxon appears in the sky, seeding the clouds to create an acid storm that melts the city. Max and Steel fly up to confront him but get their butts kicked. Berto sends in Citro with an antidote, telling Max to release it at the storm's epicenter. During the fight, Steel takes control and gets beaten up on purpose. It's all a trick, just like in the cartoon. He injects the antidote into Toxon, neutralizing the acid rain.
Way to go, guys! The clouds are reverting back to normal. How'd you do it?
Sometimes you must lose the fight to win the battle.
Even without his powers, Toxon escapes. Back at Entech, Steel admits he felt a connection to the hero's mysterious past, and Max reassures him that he's important, with or without a costume. Chasing a truck of arms dealers, Max Steel uses his turbo bike to ride up the side of a skyscraper and take a shortcut. It's like a scene from The Fast and the Furious with superpowers. After stopping the truck, he and his alien partner Steel are surrounded by a military force led by Colonel Jasper Castle. Castle explains the dealers stole army weapons and, impressed with Max's skills, invites him to his base. There, he shows a massive dossier on the villain Dredd and proposes an alliance. Back at Entech, Max's uncle, Commander Forge, is furious that he met with the army. The argument is interrupted when Dredd's right-hand man, Jason Knott, attacks the city with an army of dreadnoughts. Both Entech and Castle's forces respond. Castle captures Knott but argues with Forge over who gets the prisoner. In the middle of the conflict, Castle plants a seed of doubt in Max's mind, hinting that Forge is hiding Entech's true mission. This creates a crisis of confidence between Max and his uncle. Feeling betrayed, Max accepts a secret invitation from Castle to a remote base. And of course, it's a trap. Castle reveals he works for Dredd, drains some of Max's energy, and then Dredd himself appears with a massive army, including a giant rock monster.
Fine.
We both are.
It's quite simple, Max. I work for Dredd.
Just as Max is about to be defeated, the Entech team arrives to save the day. In the battle, Steel tells Max to fire his turbo blaster at Dredd. The shot acts as a laser marker, allowing Entech to lock on and hit Dredd with a missile, forcing him to retreat. In the end, Castle is arrested, and Max makes peace with Forge. Unbeknownst to anyone, Steel secretly contacts an unknown energy source, seeking his own answers. In a desert canyon, Dredd meets the monstrous Air Elementor. The deal is simple. Dredd offers the location of the other captured elementors, fire, water, and earth, and in return, Air Elementor has to help him destroy Max Steel. The wind monster agrees instantly, overconfident he can breach Entech with no problem. Meanwhile, at the Entech base, Max and Steel are in a training simulator. Berto, the team's genius, warns that despite Max's strength, his reflexes are slower than dial-up internet. After training, Max and Berto head to a concert, but Steel, ever the curious one, decides to play spy. He enters a restricted area and finds the 3 imprisoned Elementors. Steel wants to know where he came from, but the villains just mock him, saying they'll only tell him the truth if he frees them. Commander Forge catches Steel in the act, and a heated argument is cut short by the alarm. Air Elementor is attacking the base. Entech's defenses are useless against the creature. Max activates turbo flight mode but is steamrolled by the Elementor's power. Berto then devises a plan. First, they use sonic cannons to daze the monster. Then, they equip Max's strength mode with a silver iodide dispenser. Max fires, causing Air Elementor to freeze solid and drop to the ground. Victory, or not. The captured Elementor is placed with the others but reveals it was all a plan to get inside the base. Using a device Dredd gave him, he overloads the containment cells. The 4 Elementors escape, and on their way out, they kidnap Cat right in front of everyone. The 4 Elementors merge into a single monster, like an evil Megazord, and the first thing this creature does is kidnap Commander Forge and deliver him straight to Dredd. With the boss gone, Berto takes command of N-Tech. Using a satellite, Steel locates the ultimate elementor, and Max goes after him. In the confrontation, Max realizes the 4 elementor personalities are fighting for control of the body, but even so, he can't handle their combined power. Meanwhile, Dredd tries to torture information out of Forge, but the commander is no pushover. He escapes and starts brawling with Dredd's robots. Back at N-Tech, a new alert comes in. Ultimate Elementor is destroying the Copper Canyon Dam, threatening to flood the entire city. Max rushes over, and on the way, Forge appears in a stolen jet with Dredd's fighters on his tail. An insane aerial battle ensues, and Forge cleverly tricks Dredd's missiles into hitting the villain's own ship, forcing him to retreat. At the dam, Elementor summons a storm and strikes Max with a lightning bolt. Realizing he can't win with brute force, Max and Steel activate a new, untested mode, Turbo Speed Mode. Faster than lightning, Max runs up the dam wall, leaving a trail of water that he then freezes, trapping Elementor in a giant block of ice.
I like speed mode.
And I like your plan.
But before the team can celebrate, the ice melts, and the monster escapes. Later, the team discovers Elementor left a transmitter behind, and Steel says mysteriously that he finally has all the pieces he needs.
I finally have all the pieces I need.
2 thugs, Dwayne and Curvy, have just stolen a biotech briefcase, and to ditch the cops, they hide the evidence in a pickup truck at a junkyard. The next day, by pure coincidence, who shows up to buy that very same truck? Max McGrath himself. Max's turbo energy shorts out the vehicle, so he takes it to Berto at N-Tech. And Berto doesn't just fix it, he turns the rust bucket into a high-tech ride that Steel can control, the turbo car. Meanwhile, the thugs discover the truck is gone, with the briefcase inside. They track Max to his school and kidnap his friend, Sydney. The timing couldn't be worse. Max is in the middle of his driver's test when he gets the kidnapper's call. Without a second thought, he abandons the test, activates the turbo car, and speeds off after the criminals, with the instructor still in the passenger seat. The chase ends at a warehouse, where the villain Extroyer appears. He's the one who hired the goons to steal the briefcase, which contains DNA samples from the world's most dangerous creatures. Furious at their failure, Extroyer takes a black cobra sample and transforms into a giant, spiky serpent monster. While Max fights the creature, Sydney escapes in another car. Steel takes control of the turbo car and fires a turbo annihilator, which literally melts Extroyer into a puddle of goo. With the day saved, Max still manages to pass his test and get his driver's license. He calls Sydney to see if she's okay, but decides to ask her to the dance another time. We cut to Max Steel in the middle of the ocean, beating up some criminals with his turbo flight and turbo scuba modes. But a hero's life isn't all sunshine and rainbows. He gets an angry call from his friend Sydney for bailing on their movie date. The guilt hits hard, and Max decides he needs to tell her the truth. He is Max Steel. Steel thinks it's a terrible idea, but since when does Max listen? Meanwhile, the villain Elementor is plotting with Dredd to capture our hero, and as if that weren't enough, Elementor steals the blueprints for a turbo siphon, planning to suck all of Max's power for himself. The next day, Max meets Sydney to drop the bomb, but at the crucial moment, he chokes. When he finally manages to speak, she doesn't believe him. She remembers seeing Max and Max Steel in the same place once. To prove it, he takes her to an alley, but Steel, still thinking it's a boneheaded idea, fights for control of the body and prevents the transformation.
Max.
And I'm Sydney.
I'm Max Steel.
No, you're not.
Go turbo! Flight!
Sydney leaves confused, and that's when Max finally manages to transform. She finally sees the truth, but the joy is short-lived. Elementor appears out of nowhere and attacks. The explosion knocks Sydney out, conveniently erasing her memory of everything. Max tells Steel to get Sydney to safety and faces Elementor alone, powerless. He's captured and almost turned into hero juice, but Sydney wakes up, throws Steel back to Max, and they link up again. With a little help from Citro, they defeat the villain. N-Tech agents arrive, take Sydney away, and Max decides it's better to keep his secret. Far away, Dredd recovers Elementor, who is already reaffirming his plan to betray his boss and make Max Steel a part of him. This guy never learns. Max Steel is in the city fighting a mutant, but not before messing up his turbo mode due to a communication glitch with Steel. After the victory, a question lingers. This is just one of several similar monster attacks. The next day, Max's mom, Molly, receives a bouquet of roses from a secret admirer. Max, being the overprotective son he is, immediately gets suspicious suspicious and decides to play detective. He takes DNA samples from the monsters to Entech, and his colleague Berto discovers they were normal people infected with an artificial virus. When another agent, Jefferson, asks him to say hi to his mom, Max freaks out, accuses the guy of sending the flowers, and accidentally zaps him with turbo energy. Oops.
Means next time you see your mom, tell her I said hey.
You got that?
At home, Molly smells the roses and inhales a strange pollen. The next morning, she's acting bizarrely, her eyes glowing purple, and she suddenly leaps out of their apartment window. Max and Steel fly after her as she now sprints through the city with super speed. When Max finally catches up to her, she turns into a cloud of purple smoke, and in her place appears a giant slime monster. Berto confirms it. The virus was in the flowers. Max connects the dots and realizes the villain is Toxon, a former colleague of his mother's seeking revenge. Molly, now transformed into the villain Toxiana, joins Toxon in the sewers.
I am here, my master.
Max and the Entech team locate them in a park, where Berto says a strong emotional shock could break the virus's control. Knowing what to do, Max deactivates his suit in midair, revealing his face to his mother. The sight of her son makes Toxiana hesitate and revert to Molly, who catches him before he can hit the ground. In the end, Molly recovers at Entech, while the team believes Toxon has been defeated for good. The action kicks off with Max Steel facing Extroyer, who's furious about being left for dead twice. The villain transforms into a giant spider and then a tiger, taking the fight on top of a moving truck. In a brilliant move, Max uses turbo strength mode to distract the beast with a teddy bear and manages to defeat it. Extroyer simply vanishes. Back on a rooftop, Steel is having an existential crisis, questioning his origins. Desperate for answers, he decides he needs to access the Ultralink inside Extroyer. Ignoring all of Max's warnings, he flies off alone. Steel tracks Extroyer to an animal research center, where the villain is absorbing the energy of a gorilla. Without a second thought, Steel allows himself to be swallowed by Extroyer's snake form to access the Ultralink from within. He's bombarded with memories of another planet, invading ships, and a different hero in a suit similar to Max Steel's. The energy overload fries Steel's circuits, and he's spat out, completely glitching. Meanwhile, a weakened Extroyer invades the THI tower and takes Max's mom, Molly, hostage. He demands that Max bring him a nano-energy regulator, or she's done for. At Entech, Max learns of the situation but finds Steel broken, singing and talking nonsense. Unable to use his turbo modes properly, he goes alone. He makes the exchange, but Extroyer, of course, transforms into a giant gorilla and attacks. Molly doesn't stand by. She fights back. That's when a newly rebooted Steel arrives with Max. They link up, activate turbo flight, and with help from Molly and Citro, they finally defeat Extroyer. After it's all over, Max and Steel watch the memory Steel downloaded, showing that mysterious hero and leaving a question hanging in the air. Who was that guy? Elsewhere, Dredd, Elementor, and Jason Knott are debriefing a mission gone wrong. Knott, who seems to be the group's intern, takes the blame for letting Forge escape. To save his own skin, he proudly shows off a tracker he built. However, Dredd and Elementor just burst out laughing because everyone knows Entech's signals are encrypted. Humiliated, Knott decides he's going to handle it himself to prove his worth. Meanwhile, at Entech, Max and Steel are getting chewed out by Commander Forge for slacking off and playing video games. Forge briefly mentions the transmitter mission but offers no details, leaving the duo dying of curiosity. Later, Steel, who can't resist swiping any cool tech he sees, reveals he stole a piece of the transmitter. Back in Max's room, they decide to power it on. Instantly, Knott's device beeps, and he's off on the hunt. The component gives Max and Steel a set of coordinates, so they hop in their truck for a road trip that's already doomed from the start. Out of nowhere, Knott's ship appears and blows up a giant hot dog statue just to make an entrance. Max goes turbo strength mode to fight Knott's robots, only to discover they explode upon defeat. Trapped in a minefield of bomb bots, Max switches to turbo speed mode and then turbo flight mode to escape. He even manages to trick Knott's heat-seeking missiles into destroying each other, but amidst the chaos, a henchman steals the component. Just as Knott is about to flee, Dredd and Elementor show up. Turns out, they were tracking Knott the whole time. Dredd takes the component and essentially forces Knott to work for him. Shortly after, Entech arrives and Forge lays it all out. The component was part of a global network, and Max just handed the enemy a roadmap to every single node. way to go. Two fishermen, Vin and Dwayne, are out at sea, trying to escape the chaos of Copper Canyon. Suddenly, one of them catches a bizarre glowing fish that promptly melts into radioactive yellow goo. The goo spreads, capsizes their boat, and when the two wash ashore, the slime completely consumes them. It's like a scene straight out of a B horror movie. At Entech, the team investigates the coastal contamination. Berto, the team's tech genius, suspects the culprit is the villain Toxon, whom everyone thought was history. His body was never recovered from the ocean floor and is likely leaking toxins. Forge sends a team to investigate. Underwater, Max, in turbo scuba mode, is attacked by a school of mutant fish and nearly swallowed by a giant one. He manages to muscle his way out, only to be saved by none other than Toxon himself, now with a serious upgrade. Toxon, more powerful than ever, announces his return with a demand worthy of a petulant child. He wants his plastic pet fish, Buddy, back. If they don't return it, he'll unleash his new toxic power on the world. Back at Entech, Forge refuses to negotiate, later admitting he threw the toy away. Berto discovers that Toxon didn't just leak, he absorbed radioactive waste, gaining new powers. The only way to reverse the damage is to make him reabsorb it all. Max suggests the oldest trick in the book, create a fake Buddy to trick him. During the exchange, Toxon realizes the fish is a fake and unleashes an army of slime monsters. Max fights them off, but his suit's radiation levels hit critical. In the nick of time, Forge shows up with the real Buddy, which he found in a recycling bin. A recording in the toy tricks Toxon into cleaning up his own mess, but after absorbing all the radiation, he and Buddy decide to destroy Entech anyway, out of patience. Max uses turbo flight mode to trap the superpowered villain inside one of the empty waste silos, putting a lid on his plan once and for all.
Triple reinforced and shatterproof for 1,000 years.
After a high-speed chase just to make it on time, Max McGrath arrives at science class, only to be called out by his teacher, Mr. Thornhill. Not only did he bomb the test, but his grades and constant tardiness are about to get him expelled. His friends Kirby and Sydney give him a tip. The school science fair, organized by Thornhill himself, is his last chance. The only problem? The projects are due today. Meanwhile, the villain Extroyer watches a news report about Max Steel and takes note of his immense power. Back at school, Thornhill demands Max's project. He grabs the kid's backpack and from inside a sneaker, pulls out Steel. The teacher, completely baffled, thinks the Ultralink is a talking gadget and confiscates it, believing it to be Max's project. Later, Max tries to get Steel back, but gives up, leaving him there in hopes of passing the class. The next day, Thornhill announces that Max has won the science fair with his invention, the self-automating shoe warmer. The news gets out in the school paper and reaches Extroyer, who now knows Steel's location. At the same time, Thornhill tells Max he gave the shoe warmer to some mysterious people in exchange for a donation to the school. Max runs outside just in time to see a car speeding away with Steel. In a warehouse, Extroyer reveals himself, chases down and captures Steel, forcing a link with him and transforming into a giant winged monster. Entech tracks the signal and goes after the villain. During the battle, Max, using his raw turbo energy, leaps onto the creature and manages to free Steel. They link up, and the real fight begins.
Go turbo! Flight! Go turbo! Strength!
Extroyer keeps shifting between animal forms, like a multi-stage video game boss. With help from his uncle Forge, Max defeats the monster who reverts to his base form and escapes. Back at school, Max presents a new, simpler project. Thornhill begrudgingly admits that he might just pass. As soon as Max leaves, he gets an earful from another teacher for being late. A teenage hero's work is never done. At Dredd's base, the villain is scolding a bizarre monster that looks like a fusion of 4 creatures. The problem is that the monster can't stop fighting with itself, as each of its elemental personalities vies for control. Dredd cuts them off, reminding them that their priority is finding Max Steel, who is key to their plans. Then, the monster's air personality, Air Elementor, has an idea. He reveals a device called the Ultra Link Hunter, which can break the fusion and separate the 4 of them again. He proposes a competition. Each will hunt Max Steel, and the first one to capture the hero becomes the supreme leader. The others eagerly agree. Air Elementor uses the device. A blast of energy erupts, and poof! The fusion is undone. Now separated, the 4 elementors, fire, water, earth, and air, begin their hunt. Meanwhile, at Entech, Max and Steel are in a training session, but Steel is distracted, desperate to know his origins, and decides he's going to pry the truth out of Entech's head scientist, Berto. Later, in a park, Steel tries to hypnotize Berto into spilling the secrets of the Ultralinks, but their forced therapy session is interrupted by an explosion in the city. Max and Steel arrive at a burning building to find Fire Elementor, who has set a trap. During the fight, the other 3 Elementors show up, each wanting Max as their prize. They start brawling amongst themselves, like a Black Friday sale where Max is the doorbuster. This gives the hero an opening to escape with the still hypnotized Berto in an Entech jet. However, Air Elementor shoots the jet down, and it crashes in a canyon. Earth Elementor captures Max, but the others arrive to crash the party, and the fight resumes. Max escapes and, influenced by the hypnotized Berto, activates a new turbo cannon mode. He fires a powerful blast that weakens all 4 enemies but completely drains his energy.
Turbo! Cannon!
Realizing they're useless apart, the Elementors decide to merge once more, becoming the fearsome Ultimate Elementor. After getting thrashed by the newly merged Elementor, Max Steel is rescued by Entech. At the base, Commander Forge admits they're outmatched and reveals a desperate plan. Ask the imprisoned villain Toxon for help. Max and Steel go to speak with him, and he initially refuses, but the cunning Steel plays on his ego, questioning his intelligence. Taking the bait, Toxon agrees to help, but with a list of demands and the condition that he gets to observe Elementor up close. Entech transports Toxon's containment cell to a canyon, where of course, they are ambushed by Elementor. To get the sample Toxon needs, Steel activates a new turbo clone mode, creating multiple copies of Max to distract the monster. Not unlike Naruto's Shadow Clone Jutsu, the plan works, and Steel gets the reading. Back at the base, Toxon creates a serum. With Elementor attacking headquarters, Max loads the serum into a launcher on his motorcycle and fires it directly into the monster's core. The creature destabilizes and collapses. Victory, or not. Then comes the plot twist. Toxon reveals the serum wasn't designed to destroy Elementor, but to bring him under his control. The now obedient monster frees Toxon from his cell. The 2 villains team up, with Toxon riding Elementor like Master Blaster from Mad Max, and they turn on Max. Thinking fast, Max uses turbo clone mode again, creating an army of copies that overwhelm the villains. While they're distracted by the clones, the real Max uses turbo strength to knock out Elementor, taking Toxon down with him. With the villains separated and captured, Entech regroups, now with a few new tricks up their sleeve. Max tries to invite his friends, Kirby and Sydney, to hang out at THI, but they blow him off, saying they have other plans. Suspicious, Max decides to find out what the pair is really up to. Meanwhile, the villain Extroyer and his henchmen decide to rob the Copper Canyon Museum of Natural History. Just hearing the name Max Steel sends Extroyer into a rage, and he transforms, revealing his plan to steal a new prehistoric exhibit. Max eventually discovers his friend's secret. They're in a science lab building a Max Steel statue to honor him. As Max tries to talk them out of this embarrassing idea, he gets an alert about Extroyer at the museum. He makes a lame excuse and bolts, arriving by truck just as Extroyer, now transformed into a giant snake, attacks. Max Steel fights him, but the villain manages to escape with a piece of amber. Determined to help, Sydney decides she and Kirby will catch Extroyer on their own. They head to THI, where Sydney steals a suspended animation inoculator. In his lair, Extroyer reveals the amber contained a mosquito with dinosaur DNA, which he absorbs to become a T-Rex hybrid. That night, Sydney and Kirby set a trap, using Kirby in a homemade Max Steel costume as bait. The plan obviously goes sideways when the giant T-Rex Extroyer shows up. Sydney tries to use the inoculator, but the weapon only puts Kirby to sleep. Max Steel arrives in turbo flight mode to save the day. He battles the dinosaur, switching between cannon and strength modes, but he's getting pummeled. Sydney tosses the inoculator to Max. In a desperate move, Max lets himself be swallowed and activates the device from inside the beast, putting it to sleep. Max thanks Sydney for her help, and by the next day, she's already planning how to take down his other enemies. The girls developed a taste for it. The maniacal Knot manages to repair an Entech component, giving Dredd access to the planet's entire transmitter network. But his plan isn't just to hack it, it's to use an arsenal of missiles to blow it all up, leaving Earth completely vulnerable. And to make matters worse, he wants Max Steel Steel to be the star of his destructive show. Back at N-Tech, Commander Forge is about to drop the bombshell and tell Max the whole truth about his and Steel's past. But, like in any good action movie, the emergency alarm blares right on cue. They discover that Dredd has not only breached their system, but is also launching the missiles from the middle of the desert. The team heads out and comes face to face with Dredd, his army of dreadnoughts, and a giant creature called Elementor. The missiles launch, but Forge gives a crazy order: don't shoot them down. An explosion now would be catastrophic. While Max battles Elementor and even gets trapped in a water bubble, Dredd reveals the missiles were just a diversion. His real play was using the repaired component to turn N-Tech's own robots against each other. After Max breaks free and defeats Elementor, Dredd unveils his final plan. He has Elementor absorb the component, drains the turbo energy from both the creature and Max, and transforms into a godlike, superpowered being.
Sweet turbo energy. Always interfering.
With his new look, he defeats the rest of N-Tech's forces and even Elementor, who tried to get revenge. He activates the real missiles and simply leaves. With time running out, Berto reprograms the launch key. In a final sacrifice, Max and Steel channel all their remaining energy into it, creating a pulse that causes the missiles to self-destruct. The effort is so great that Steel shuts down, like a phone with a dead battery.
More, Max! A lot more! What are you doing, bud? You need those reserves to survive. Steel, say something!
The Earth is safe, but the global defense network is gone. Right after the missile incident, the team's ship is shot down in the desert, and they come face to face with a colossal alien mothership. They narrowly escape and return to N-Tech's base, where Forge finally comes clean. The ship belongs to a world devourer named Machino, and Steel, well, he's an Ultralink, the same species as the invaders, programmed to conquer planets. N-Tech's true mission has always been to stop this invasion. Steel is furious to learn his entire existence has been a lie. The mothership begins a full-scale assault, unleashing Ultralinks that possess N-Tech's own vehicles and, get this, reanimate dinosaur skeletons to fight for them. It's like Jurassic Park meets War of the Worlds. Aboard the ship, we discover Dredd has allied himself with Machino. With N-Tech losing badly, Forge realizes the only way to breach the ship's shield is by using the enemy's own technology. He and Max link up in a new mode and manage to board the vessel. Inside, another bombshell. Forge reveals that Max's father was the original Max Steel and was also partnered with Steel. Before they can process this, a souped-up Dredd, now wielding red turbo energy, crashes the party. He's far more powerful and defeats the duo. In the middle of the fight, Steel seemingly betrays everyone and pledges his allegiance to Machino. But wait, it was all a ruse. Steel goads Dredd into overloading the ship's shield generator with his negative energy. The generator explodes, and Forge sacrifices himself, pushing Max and Steel to safety. The team mourns their loss, but suddenly, Forge parachutes down, alive but missing an arm. The victory is short-lived. They discover the destroyed ship was just a scout. Machino's real invasion is still on its way.
No more.
After a training session in the N-Tech simulation, Commander Forge warns Max that the threat from Machino is serious, and that he has yet to unlock an ultimate power. Later, Max tries to have a normal life and makes plans to watch a meteor shower with his friend Sydney. When he gets there, their friend Kirby shows up wearing a tinfoil suit, ready to protect himself from aliens. The meteor shower begins, but the meteors are actually Ultralink pods crashing to Earth. Elsewhere, Dredd and his partner watch as the pods open and merge with elements of nature, creating new monsters.
To battle!
The monsters attack the city, and Max, after making an excuse to his friends, transforms and joins the fight. Berto sends the robot Citro to help, along with a new weapon, the Turbo Lash. Using the new whip and Citro's help, Max defeats the first wave of creatures, but then Dredd appears. Just as Dredd is about to finish Max off, a bounty hunter named Vengon appears out of nowhere and teleports them both to a warehouse. There, Vengon reveals that Steel is a fugitive wanted for crimes against the universe, and he has come to bring him to justice. He also notes that Max's suit bears markings similar to those of a universal hero. Max refuses to hand over his partner and begins to fight the bounty hunter. Meanwhile, Entech forces battle Dredd, who makes a tactical retreat. Back at the warehouse, Vengon manages to capture Steel, but as he teleports away, the portal sucks Max in with them, and the two vanish, leaving everyone behind.
Maybe it's best you're not around.
It all starts with an alien bounty hunter named Vengon, who looks like he walked right out of a Predator movie, capturing Steel and pulling Max into a chaotic portal. After a rough landing, Max is found by Berto, who received an SOS from Steel. Max explains that Vengon has kidnapped his partner to stand trial for old crimes. The problem? Steel swears he has amnesia and doesn't remember a thing, like a soap opera character who's hit his head. Back at Entech, the team discovers that an Ultralink captured from Dredd has revealed some terrible news. An even bigger invasion is coming, complete with a countdown and everything. Commander Forge then divides the team. He, Jefferson, and Kat will go after Dredd, while Max, Berto, and Citro are tasked with rescuing Steel. Max and Citro track down Vengon, who greets them with gravity-guided missiles. Max tries to fight back, but without Steel to regulate his energy, he starts to overload on turbo energy, nearly blue screening. He even tries the whole "the enemy of my enemy is my friend" speech on Vengon, since they're both against Machino, but the hunter isn't interested in talking and defeats Max. Just as he's about to deliver the final blow, Citro arrives in the nick of time to save the day, and Steel is finally reunited with Max.
And you, mechanical man.
Good to have you back, bro.
Good to be back, Turbo.
Meanwhile, Forge's team walks right into an ambush at Dredd's base. With the dynamic duo back together, Max and Steel join the fight. That's when Dredd reveals his evil master plan. The captured Ultralink wasn't just an informant, it was a digital Trojan horse. The countdown was for the Ultralink to merge with Entech's system. Now, Dredd has control of all the agency's drones, turning the hero's own weapons against them. Max has a hyper-vivid dream that feels more like a lost memory. In it, his father, Jim McGrath, is conducting an experiment that's sabotaged by a man in a suit, causing a massive explosion. Max believes the memory is real, passed to him through his link with Steel, and convinces his partner to search for a secret room he saw in the dream. Meanwhile, Dredd and Knot set up a new underwater base, and the villain plans to infiltrate Entech using a robotic spy fly to steal data from Forge's computer. At Entech, Forge informs the team that the main security system is undergoing an upgrade, which will leave their defenses offline for exactly 3 minutes. Dredd's little fly records everything, giving him the perfect window of opportunity. With a plan worthy of a movie villain, he tricks Elementor into attacking Entech at that exact moment, using him as a distraction. At the same time, Dredd makes a deal with the imprisoned Destroyer, freedom in exchange for stealing a file named TS-12 from Forge's computer. Max and Steel find the secret room from the dream, an old, dilapidated version of the turbo chamber. As soon as the Entech upgrade begins and Elementor's forces attack, Destroyer escapes, successfully uploads the file to Dredd, and vanishes. After the battle, Max learns that Dredd double-crossed Elementor and is now in league with Machino. Later, Max and Steel analyze a copy of the TS-12 file and find an old video of baby Max with his parents. In the video, his father mentions a device called the Turbo Star.
Hear that, Steel? He likes you. Now, let's fire up the Turbo Star and give her a test run.
Across town, Dredd also analyzes the file and becomes convinced that the Turbo Star is the key to universal domination. An Ultralink named Plastech arrives on Earth, and when Steel scans him, his weapon potential is 0. Harmless, right? Not so much. Shortly after, the villain Toxon appears, and Steel's scan jumps to infinite. The contrast is like comparing a poodle to a T-Rex. Toxon invades a lab with his boss, a fish in a bowl named Fishy, to download a map of a massive oil reserve. Their to-do list is simple: get a laser sampler, destroy Max Steel, and cleanse humanity from the planet. In an alley, Plastech tries to link with Toxon but misses his target and ends up merging with Fishy instead.
No, linking with unintended target!
The result is a bizarre monster that attacks its own master, rips a crystal from his chest, and tosses him in a dumpster. Now controlled by a completely unhinged Fishy, the monster has a muddled mission: destroy Max Steel, get revenge on a hot dog vendor, and eliminate humanity. Priorities: seeing his pet fish transformed, Toxon vows to rescue him. Meanwhile, Max and Steel's cop movie marathon is interrupted by a call from Forge. THI is under attack. Max goes turbo mode just as the Plastech monster, already armed with the the laser sampler, is clashing with N-Tech forces. Max arrives in flight mode, closely followed by Toxon, who just wants to save his fishy. The monster reveals its body is made of plastic, so Max switches to strength mode to fight, but Toxon interferes. Max realizes Toxon isn't looking for a fight, just trying to rescue his pet, and he hesitates. The villain seizes the opportunity and jumps into the water after Fishy, but fails to rescue him, leaving him sinking into the depths. Rescue mission failed.
You destroyed my fishy Max Steel, and you will feel my rage!
Here we see Max and Kirby's band, Turbofied, practicing for the Copper Canyon Battle of the Bands. The music is so loud that Sydney gets fed up, grabs Max's guitar, and just rips an insane solo, instantly earning her spot in the band.
You need a little help.
Welcome to the band!
Meanwhile, a new villain named Metal Elementor receives a mission from his boss, Machino, destroy Max Steel. He discovers that Steel, our little floating robot, is actually a deserter from Machino's army and swears revenge. The guy travels to Earth and performs a megalink with a gold statue, gaining a new, super-powered body. To promote their show, the band posts a video announcing that Max Steel might make an appearance. Of course, the villains see this, and Metal Elementor immediately tries to take charge of the other Elementors, picking a fight with Dread over who gets to lead the attack. At the Battle of the Bands, Max gets nervous after a rival's performance, but N-Tech's Berto shows up as a turbo roadie, bringing special effects and even costumes. With an awesome show full of holographic projections of Max's turbo modes, Turbofied wins the competition. But the party doesn't last long. The villains attack, and Dread corners Max, trying to drain his energy to learn more about the so-called Turbo Star. Max escapes with Berto's help and goes after Metal Elementor at a metal refinery. Steel figures out they can use the plant's hydrochloric acid to defeat him. Using his turbo modes, Max tricks the villain and knocks him into a vat of acid, dissolving his statue body.
Go Turbo!
Metal Elementor is teleported away, vowing to return. In the end, Dread discovers that the Turbo Star wasn't destroyed but broke into 3 pieces scattered across Earth. The N-Tech team is in a canyon chasing some Ultralinks. The mission, capture one alive for DNA analysis, but in the middle of the chase, Max swerves his turbo bike to avoid hitting 3 ducklings, crashes, and lets the targets get away. A hero with a soft spot, go figure. Steel is all grumpy about it, so to cheer him up, Berto builds him a new pet, a robot dog named Furbo. But there's a catch. Berto warns that if Furbo doesn't get 10 hours of sleep a day, he becomes hyperactive and starts multiplying. Basically, a metal gremlin.
Replicating.
Meanwhile, Extroyer captures one of the escaped Ultralinks and learns that N-Tech is about to receive a DNA microfuser, a device that could help him absorb the Ultralink's power. At the Copper Canyon docks, Extroyer attacks, transforming from a T-Rex to a gorilla to steal the microfuser. Max shows up to fight, but the villain escapes with a decoy case while his henchmen steal the real device. In his lair, Extroyer uses the microfuser and absorbs the Ultralink, turning into a giant electric centipede-like monster. Max and Berto confront the creature, but the new hybrid is too strong. Just as the beast is about to finish Max, Furbo sacrifices himself to save him, only for his parts to reassemble into Berto's giant mech armor. With the upgrade, they defeat the hybrid Extroyer and recover the microfuser. To solve the problem of the Furbo clones infesting the base, they come up with a brilliant idea. They load them all onto a captured Machino ship, like a Trojan puppy, and send it to the enemy, who gets buried under a pile of hyperactive robots. Max is struggling with his algebra homework when Steel interrupts him. The little robot has finally decrypted a mysterious file revealing the location of the first piece of the Turbo Star, deep at the bottom of the ocean. At the same time, the villain Dread and his forces also discover the artifact's whereabouts. Dread realizes the piece is embedded in a rock wall and plans to blast it free, but his subordinate warns that the explosion's energy will alert a nearby underwater N-Tech base. To create a diversion, Dread sends Metal Elementor and other villains to to attack the base, feeding them false information about a superweapon called the Tachyon missile. Back at school, Max is alerted to the attack. He's deployed in a new vehicle, the Turbo Jet, which comes with an AI co-pilot named TJ. After an aerial dogfight worthy of Top Gun against Dredd's ships, Max activates the jet's aqua mode and dives into the sea. While Metal Elementor's team invades the EdTech base, Dredd manages to blast the wall and grab the Turbo Star piece. However, Steel, flying with TJ, manages to snatch the artifact from his grasp. Dredd's counterattack causes a massive cave-in, and the piece is lost in the rubble. Furious, Dredd retreats. Unseen by anyone, Elementor picks up a small, glowing crystal from the debris. Max, now in scuba mode and separated from Steel, arrives at the EdTech base, only to get trapped in a hallway with Metal Elementor and his crew. We open with Max Steel in a high-octane chase after some bikers. Steel, wanting to show off for a news camera, decides to take control of Max's body, but his showboating backfires, and the two end up crashing into a dumpster while the police arrest the crooks. Serves them right. In outer space, a mysterious figure hires Vengon. The mission: capture the renegade Ultralink, our beloved Steel.
You will be brought to justice, Steel.
The next morning, after an argument over a toothbrush, Steel forces Max to wear a super cheesy, old-school superhero costume. Arriving at school, he's naturally mocked by his friends Kirby and Sydney. Steel gets offended and flies off. That's when Vengon appears and captures the poor guy in a containment pod. Max, still in the ridiculous costume, goes after Vengon to save his partner. In the middle of the brawl, they discover new activation words for the turbo modes. But just as Vengon is about to recapture Steel, Elementor emerges from a tornado, grabs them both, and vanishes into thin air. Elementor delivers his prisoners to Metal Elementor, who is actually Miles Dredd in disguise. In a plot twist worthy of a soap opera, Dredd betrays Elementor, absorbs his powers, and becomes Mega Elementor. Meanwhile, Max infiltrates Dredd's base and frees both Vengon and Steel. Mega Elementor attacks, and Max and Steel link up again, activating Turbo Strength mode. They fight alongside Vengon, and in the heat of battle, unlock a new Turbo Mimic mode, which allows Steel to copy Max's powers. Together, they take down Dredd's henchmen. Max and Vengon team up to bring down Mega Elementor and escape the base just as it explodes. In the desert, Vengon, now with a newfound respect for Max, departs, leaving the duo to face Dredd, who has survived and is more powerful than ever. In his hideout, the villain Toxon is using voice recognition software to analyze players of a new video game called Max Steel Turbo Warriors. His goal? To find Max Steel's real identity. And what do you know? It works. While Max and Steel are casually gaming, Max's voice matches the software. Toxon discovers their usernames and immediately hatches a plan to delete them from real life. The next day in class, Max's teacher, Mr. Thornhill, gives him a lecture, claiming video games are toxic and will melt his brain. That night, Steel, who is completely addicted, sneaks off to play in the tournament while Max is asleep. But it's a trap set by Toxon. The villain used an Ultralink named Avatak to merge with a console and create a weapon. When Max discovers Steel's addiction, he acts like an angry parent and grounds his partner. No video games for a week, but Steel can't resist and enters the tournament again. This time, Toxon hijacks the game and traps all the players inside. He reveals that the controllers are linked to the players' biometrics. If they lose or log out, it's game over in real life. Like a low-budget Sword Art Online, a 15-minute timer starts, and if it hits 0, an energy wave will destroy the city. Max enters the game to save everyone, but gets stuck in the training room. After finally clearing the tutorial, he joins the tournament and teams up with Steel to fight the other mind-controlled players. When the final boss, Avatak, appears, Max remembers an invisibility glitch in the game. He taunts the robot, lures it into the trap, and defeats it. All the players are freed, and Max is declared the champion. And in a final twist, the anti-gaming teacher, Mr. Thornhill, turns out to be one of the top-ranked players.
Ultimate teacher, prepare for combat!
In the school cafeteria, Max is disgusted by the shoe leather steak for lunch when, out of nowhere, the school is attacked by the Elementors. Max becomes Max Steel and jumps into the fray. In the midst of the chaos, he discovers that one of the monsters, a plant-like destroyer, also hates the cafeteria food. After freezing another monster with liquid nitrogen, we learn it was all just a simulation. Steel announces that his program has located the second piece of the Turbo Star in the copper mine. After a quick chat with his Uncle Forge, the The duo heads to the mine, unaware that the villain Dredd has also discovered the artifact's location. At the abandoned mine, they're not alone. Their classmates, Sydney and Kirby, are also there, trying to debunk the local urban legend of the Copper Squatch for their blog. Soon, Dredd appears and confronts Max. Their flight causes a cave-in that traps Sydney and Kirby. Max saves the two, and Sydney, who has a map of the mine, agrees to guide the hero in exchange for filming a documentary about him. Their journey is interrupted by another of Dredd's henchmen, Prism. While Max fights him, Sydney and Kirby fall into a runaway minecart in a scene straight out of Indiana Jones. Dredd goes after the cart, but Max stops him. Dredd uses his fire form to attack, but Max manages to save his friends from falling into a chasm, giving Dredd the chance to escape with the Turbo Star piece. Back at Entech, Uncle Forge tells them the truth. The Turbo Star is a super weapon that destroyed Max's father. Now their mission is to stop Dredd from getting the final piece at any cost.
The Turbo Star is dangerous. It destroyed your father. Our first priority is to stop Dredd from getting the final piece.
With no villains around to mess with, Max and Steel are stuck with their most dreaded mission yet, chores. To make matters worse, Max is stressed about school exams, and all he can think about is summer vacation. The plan? A trip to a tropical island with his buddy Kirby, but the getaway gets complicated when Sydney asks to tag along. Salvation comes from Berto, the Entech genius, who offers the whole gang a ride in his jump jet. Once they arrive, Berto poses as an eccentric billionaire while the group tries to relax. But peace and quiet never last long for a hero. While trying to surf a giant wave, Max nearly crashes into some rocks and has to use his turbo energy to keep from getting pancaked. This energy spike acts like a beacon for Machino, who hatches a plan to lure Max Steel into a trap and finish him for good. The villain's fleet appears over the island and the group scrambles for cover. To protect Max's secret identity, Berto activates a Max holobot, making Kirby and Sydney believe that he's the real hero. Meanwhile, the real Max links up with Steel and jumps into the fight against the Ultralinks using his turbo flight, scuba, and even clone modes. Berto and Citro provide air support, but Metal Elementor pulls an Elsa and freezes the entire island, trapping Max's friends in ice. Max manages to break free, and Steel remembers a new mode he discovered, Turbo Heat. Max transforms using his new fire powers to melt the ice and save the gang.
Turbo! Heat! New mode! But someone forgot to build hands.
Afterward, he lures Metal Elementor into a volcano where the intense heat melts the villain. With their plan foiled, the rest of the Elementors retreat, and as usual, Commander Forge and Entech arrive late to the party. With the threat neutralized, the group finally gets back to their vacation. Imagine being an extra in the movie of your own life. That's what's happening to Max and Steel, who are on the set of a Max Steel movie, putting up with a super demanding director named JB. Things get crazy when the lead actor gets injured and Kirby, Max's biggest fan, ends up being cast as the new hero. To complete the nightmare, Max becomes JB's personal assistant, a job he instantly hates. Meanwhile, the villain Extroyer, tired of getting his butt kicked by Machino, discovers a rare scorpion that can replicate itself. His plan is to absorb its power to create an army of clones, and he finds out the scorpion's owner lives right there in town. Director JB sends Max on a series of impossible errands, which he only manages to complete using his turbo modes. He even goes as far as creating diamonds from coal with his turbo heat and strength modes just to garnish his boss's lunch. During the filming of a crucial scene, Extroyer crashes the set and reveals that the collector he was looking for was JB himself. The villain absorbs the scorpion and unleashes an army of crystal clones. The movie set turns into a real battlefield, and Max soon finds himself surrounded. Remembering how they made the diamonds, Steel comes up with a brilliant plan: harden Extroyer's crystals. Max uses turbo heat and mimicry strength to apply heat and pressure to the main scorpion, making its fragments indestructible and preventing it from creating more clones. After one last brawl, Max defeats Extroyer by knocking him into the water. A truck driver is caught by surprise one night when 3 alien robots emerge from a mysterious ship. Max Steel arrives to handle the mess, but his powers start glitching, causing him to transform into random, uncontrollable forms. It's like when your internet is lagging and the game starts bugging out. One of the villains, Blast Link, hits Max with a red energy beam before vanishing with his partners, completing their mission to deliver a viral payload. Max's powers continue to go haywire, turning him into a Ray-like hero and even even a gorilla-like creature. At school, the sound of chalk on a blackboard gives Max a headache and a vision of his father, Jim the Grath, fighting on an alien planet. He screams in the middle of class, leaving everyone confused. Later, he asks his mom about the name J.M. Mikra, and she's so shocked she crashes the car. At the Entech base, Berto discovers a virus in Steele's programming. Forge and Molly take Max to the desert and tell him the truth. His father was an alien warrior from the planet Tachyon, and his real name was J.M. Mikra. And Steele? He was his Ultralink.
J.M. Mikra, the real name for James McGrath.
My husband. Your father.
They show him memories of the battle for Tachyon, where Steele, one of the villain Machino's Ultralinks, was inspired by Jim's heroism and betrayed his master to save him. To clear the virus, Max has to perform a full reboot on Steele while they're linked, the classic turn it off and on again trick. During the process, Max relives Steele's memories. The operation is a success. The villains return, tracking the energy from the reboot. But now, with his software updated and fully in sync, Max Steele takes them down easily. Far out in space, Machino discovers that his traitorous Ultralink is still alive and vows to come to Earth himself. Reeling from the revelation that his father was an alien, Max is feeling like a freak show. Steele tries to cheer him up, but Max is also upset with his mother for keeping such a huge secret. While flying around, they spot a robbery and intercept two thieves parachuting off a skyscraper. In the middle of the capture, Max, deep in an existential crisis, decides to ask the crooks for fatherly advice. One of them even complains that his dad used to bring him vanilla ice cream instead of chocolate. After apprehending the duo, Max has a tense breakfast with his mother, Molly. She apologizes, explaining that his father made her promise not to tell him about his Tachyon heritage so he could have a normal childhood. Still feeling like an outsider, Max storms off. Meanwhile, in deep space, the villain Machino prepares to open a wormhole to Earth. He contacts his minions, including Dredd and the Elementors, and gives them their mission: destroy Entech and capture Max Steele. In Etannion, Commander Forge is ambushed by the Elementors. Dredd appears and uses an Ultralink to forcibly bond with Forge, twisting him into a monstrous, corrupted version of himself, like when your save file gets corrupted and your character becomes a polygonal nightmare. Max gets a call from his friend Sydney about the school play, but it's immediately followed by a distress signal from Forge. He makes up an excuse and rushes to the location, but Forge is already gone. Back at Entech, Kat and Molly watch in horror as the corrupted Forge leads an army of Ultralinks in an all-out assault on the base. As Entech's forces try to defend themselves, Machino uses his power to rip the base's main door off its hinges from space, allowing his army to flood in. After an Entech base explodes, Max believes his mother, Molly, is dead. The villain Machino, who is busy torturing poor Steele, orders his forces to attack the THI building and seize its reactor. The plan is to use its energy to widen the wormhole and bring his entire fleet to Earth. As Max grieves, a giant robot rises from the rubble, carrying none other than Molly, alive and well in full Ellen Ripley and Aliens fashion.
Huh? Mom!
Oh, Max, I'm glad you're all right.
After a quick reunion, Entech receives a distress call from the THI building, which is under attack by Commander Forge and Machino's monsters. Molly leads a team to defend the building, while Max joins the alien Vengon to rescue Steele from Machino's ship. Before he leaves, Molly gives Max a secret code to relay to Steele. Since Vengon's ship is damaged, they use an Entech tank to teleport aboard the enemy vessel. Yes, a teleporting tank. At the THI building, Molly's team fights bravely, but Forge succeeds in uploading Machino's program to the reactor. The building transforms and fires a beam of energy into space, powering the wormhole. Aboard the ship, Max confronts Machino, who easily defeats him. When all seems lost, Max yells the code his mother gave him. This triggers a recorded message from his late father, which unlocks a new power: Turbo Rocket Mode. Transformed, Max declares himself the son of J.M. Mikra and flies into the wormhole to fight Machino.
Code 8376! Somebody's in trouble.
He destroys the ship's energy emitter, causing the portal to collapse and suck Machino in with it. On Earth, the villains retreat, and Vengon helps de-link Forge, revealing him to be the former Commander Forge. After a turbulent re-entry, Max and Steele reunite with the team. Vengon officially declares Steele destroyed in battle, clearing his name as a fugitive. With Machino supposedly defeated, villains Miles Dredd and Jason Knott are already celebrating, thinking the path to world domination is clear. Their joy is short-lived when a new, more powerful Machino appears as a hologram, revealing that he isn't a physical being but an idea. He declares his intention to lead his Ultralink army on a wave of universal absorption, and Dredd will be the first to be deleted. Realizing they're in over their heads, Dredd and Nott conclude they need Max Steel to survive.
You shall be the first to perish!
To stop him, we need Max Steel.
Meanwhile, Max is acting like a moody teenager, being distant with his friends Sydney and Kirby at school. After getting an alert from N-Tech, he rushes to a new temporary headquarters, only to find a surprise party. Commander Forge and the N-Tech team are celebrating his victory and award him and Steel medals. The party is interrupted by a holographic message from Dredd, who warns them that Machino is alive and his fleet is on its way. Dredd proposes an alliance, claiming the only way to stop Machino is with the legendary Turbo Star. He reveals he has 2 of the 3 pieces, and will give them to Max if he finds the last one. Forge forbids Max from accepting the deal, explaining that the last attempt to use the Turbo Star is what created Dredd and killed Max's father, Jim McGrath. Ignoring orders, Max and Steel use a loophole in the rules to go after the final piece on their own. Steel, with newly unlocked memory files, leads them to a secret, heavily armed N-Tech facility in the Arctic. After navigating through automated defenses and a crushing room trap, they enter a chamber where Forge is waiting. He reveals the facility was a test to protect the final piece. Just then, Dredd and his forces arrive. Having followed Max, a battle breaks out, and Dredd steals all 3 pieces of the Turbo Star. As he escapes, he triggers the base's self-destruct sequence. Max manages to save Forge just in time. Back at N-Tech, Forge puts Max on indefinite bathroom cleaning duty, while Steel starts a countdown to Machino's arrival. In science class, the Volcano project by Max, Sydney, and Kirby gets a major F after the school bully. Butch sabotages it, causing a miniature eruption all over the classroom. As punishment, the teacher has a brilliant idea: put Butch in their group. To avoid failing and getting kicked off the sports team, Butch heads to Max's apartment to help rebuild the project. There, he discovers a video game called Max Steel Turbo Dancer and confesses he's a secret fan. The two end up bonding, striking up a Just Dance-style friendship while practicing the game's moves. Across the galaxy, the big boss Dredd is furious with his commanders and orders them to retrieve 3 lost Ultralinks roaming the Earth. Later, Butch and his old gang corner Max in an alley. To maintain his tough guy reputation, Butch pretends to square up, but at the last second, he chickens out and refuses to hit Max. That's when all hell breaks loose. The 3 Ultralinks appear out of nowhere and forcibly bond with Butch, Sydney, and Kirby, turning the trio into bizarre monsters.
Whoa! My friends, they're Ultralinks!
Max and his ally Vengon give chase through the sewers, knowing they have to separate the alien symbiotes before the bond becomes permanent. Max, in strength mode, manages to break Kirby's mind control by reminding him of his band, giving Vengon the opening to perform the separation. When a Machino ship arrives to pick up the Ultralinks, Max plays his trump card. He starts doing the video game dance in front of the Butch monster. The distraction works perfectly, and Vengon frees the former bully. He then saves Sydney just as the Ultralinks retreat. Back at school, Butch celebrates a CI, his best grade ever. When his old friends try to make fun of him, Sydney stands up for him, and the new group of friends solidifies their bond. The news is buzzing. Max Steel is the hero of the hour, and the city of Copper Canyon is even unveiling a statue in his honor. Meanwhile, in some random alley, the villain Extroyer is at rock bottom, scrounging for food in the trash and seething with envy. He vows to destroy Max's reputation and make the world worship him instead. During the statue ceremony, Max himself feels a bit uncomfortable with all the adoration, and for good reason, because Extroyer suddenly attacks, transformed into a T-Rex. Max goes into combat mode, but in the middle of the fight, the villain manages to snag a DNA sample from him and flees. The crowd, clueless, cheers for Max, thinking he just saved the day again. Using the DNA, Extroyer transforms into an evil, spiky version of Max Steel, a true evil doppelganger. He starts terrorizing the city, destroying everything and pinning the blame on the original hero. When the news shows the fake Max attacking the library, the real one rushes over and confronts his clone. The fight is quick, and the police arrive just in time to see the destruction and arrest the real Max Steel.
Max Steel, you're under arrest!
Even with Forge telling him to stay put in jail, Max finds a way to escape. Meanwhile, the chaos continues, and the N-Tech robot, Citro, becomes confused and refuses to attack Extroyer, even protecting him from Kat and Jefferson. Just as the villain is about to attack a group of Max's loyal fans, the real hero shows up. In the final battle, with the help of his fans and by cleverly using the reflection of his own statue, Max defeats Extroyer and clears his name. In the final scene, the ultimate villain, Dredd, reveals he has completed his new weapon, the Turbo Star, and plans to capture Max to use him as its battery, declaring himself the hero's biggest fan. How creepy. It's Halloween night, and a group of teens are on a museum field trip that's more boring than watching paint dry. Frustrated that the cool exhibits are closed, Max, Kirby, and Sydney take advantage of their teacher arguing with the security guard and sneak into the Forbidden East Wing. Inside, they find a box that, when opened, reveals a glowing blue meteorite. Max's alien partner, Steel, identifies it immediately. It's radiating tachyon energy. Max touches the rock, and its hands begin to glow with the residue. Kirby and Sydney, curious, also handle the meteorite and end up with glowing hands. This energy wave is like a flare in the dark, and the villain Mega Metal Elementor detects it, sending two spider-like Ultralinks to investigate. Upon arriving at the museum, the Ultralinks merge with some glitchy Grim Reaper holograms, turning the projections into real monsters. Meanwhile, the teams decide to play a game of scaring each other and split up. Max uses the opportunity to try and grab the meteorite for analysis, but the Reaper monsters attack and capture Kirby and Sydney. After a panicked call from Sydney gets cut off, Max finds his friends held hostage in the medieval wing. The Reapers demand the source of the tachyon energy. Realizing they want the meteorite, Max transforms into turbo spike mode and charges into battle. The problem is, the monsters are intangible, and his attacks pass right through them. But then Max has a light bulb moment. To hold the meteorite, they have to become solid. He tosses the rock, tricking the Reapers into materializing. As soon as they're solid, Max attacks and destroys them. In the battle, the meteorite shatters, revealing a small, spike-shaped crystal. Steel recognizes it as a weapon belonging to Max's father, Jim McGrath. Max keeps the artifact as a memento of his father's heroism. An N-Tech patrol is in the middle of a routine training exercise when they're ambushed by the villain Mega Metal Elementor and his goons. But the real star of the show is a tiny minion named Torbolt, who single-handedly destroys the N-Tech vehicles as if they were toys. Max Steel arrives to save the day, and the villains take off. Later, Mega Metal scolds his lackeys but heaps praise on Torbolt, dubbing him Torbolt the Terrible. Meanwhile, at school, Max goes full superhero during football practice, and the coach, impressed by his turbocharged skills, immediately puts him on the team. Steel, bored with practice, decides to take a solo spin around the city to test his new sensors. Bad idea. He ends up walking into a trap in an alley, surrounded by the villain Blast and some monsters made of junk. That's when Torbolt appears, but instead of attacking, he opens up to Steel, confessing he's having second thoughts about Machino's destructive plans. Basically, the little guy is having an existential crisis. During the big game, the alley showdown spills onto the football field. Steel and Torbolt, who has now merged with a giant teddy bear, are fighting Blast and his rock monsters. To make matters worse, a Mega Earth Elementor erupts from the ground. Max, who had been playing like a ball hog, finally understands the importance of teamwork, passes the ball, and joins the fight. He and Steel use strength and clone modes to lay down the hurt. Torbolt, in the teddy bear body, distracts Mega Metal, who calls him a traitor before being defeated by a bizarre attack of rainbows and hearts. Yes, you read that right. After the fight, the villains flee, and Torbolt, now a rebel with a cause, decides to lead Machino and explore the universe. The big boss Machino is fed up and orders Steel's capture. The plan? Send a tiny Ultralink with a reformatting virus to brainwash our metal friend into serving evil. Far from this, Max and Berto are testing out a turbocharged motorcycle in the desert. The session is cut short when Berto gets an alert that Sydney, their Ultralink-head crush, is in danger. Max flies off to help, but on the way, he's attacked by the evil Ultralink. The critter latches onto his chest, injects the virus, and Max crashes the bike, which then explodes. Arriving at school, he finds Sydney is perfectly fine. The danger was just her being nervous because a boy asked her to the dance. In a cringe-worthy yet endearing moment, Max blurts out that he's imagined asking her 28 times, and it actually works. She agrees to be his date. Later, the virus activates, but it backfires. Instead of rebooting Steel, it swaps Max and Steel's minds. Now Max is in Steel's body and vice versa.
What's happening? I don't know.
What?
Whoa. Whoa!
Max?
I'm right here, buddy.
It's your favorite body swap movie, but with aliens. They're super clumsy, and Berto informs them he's working on a solution. At the dance, Machino's forces, led by Mega Metal, crash the party, tracking the duo's turbo energy. Max and Steel have to fight, learning on the fly how to coordinate in their swapped bodies. In the climax of the battle, Steel, in Max's body, overcharges himself, and Max, in Steel's body, launches himself like a human projectile, defeating Mega Metal. Berto arrives and says he can swap them back, but Max, in a bro move, lets Steel enjoy his first dance. The night ends with Max, in the metal body, dancing with Sydney.
Let's dance.
Villains Dredd and Knot are spying on N-Tech headquarters, which used to be their company. Dredd has a bold plan. Use the Turbo Star to blackmail the alien invader Machino when he arrives. It's like one villain trying to extort another. There's just one problem in their way: N-Tech's new flying fortress, the Daedalus platform. So Dredd orders Knot to destroy it. The plan is brilliant and a bit lazy. Since N-Tech used their old tech to build the fortress, Knot just has to activate a hidden security program, a sort of insurance policy built into the system. Aboard the nearly completed platform, Max Steel delivers the last box of supplies. After he leaves for school, a small creature escapes from the box, and Knot infiltrates the fortress. He hacks the system and unleashes the failsafe, a bizarre computer virus in the form of Fishy. The evil fish takes control and starts shutting down the engines one by one. The giant fortress begins to fall from the sky. It's the Titanic, but in the air. Meanwhile, at school, Max drinks one of his friend's spicy pepper shakes and makes a run for the bathroom. It's at this perfect moment that Steel gets the emergency alert from Molly. The timing couldn't be better. Max rushes to N-Tech and learns from Forge, Molly, and Berto that the virus is unstoppable, and in an ironic twist, Knot himself, trying to escape the falling platform, is trapped inside by the talking fish. With no way out, he appears on the command bridge and surrenders. The tables have turned. There's a new bounty hunter in town. His name is Rhinoc, and the first mission we see is him capturing a rock monster for someone called the Black Star Council. Job done, he gets a new contract. His old rival, Vengon. Apparently, Vengon got clever and deleted a contract from the council's wanted list. Rhinoc, who never turns down a good fight or a good payday, accepts the hunt and heads for Earth.
Con. Yeah, he's a bounty hunter like me, but this is gonna be fun.
Meanwhile, at N-Tech HQ, Max, Steel, and Vengon are chilling, watching a funny video. Well, Max and Steel are. Vengon is having an existential crisis trying to understand the concept of humor. The relaxed vibe is shattered when Rhinoc arrives on Earth in full "I'm not here to make friends" mode and blows up a diner just to get their attention. Steel picks up the alert, and the trio goes to investigate. Max arrives in flight mode and gets thrown into a building like a bowling pin. He switches to strength mode, but Rhinoc pulls out an antimatter grenade and incapacitates our hero. That's when Vengon shows up, and the two hunters recognize each other. Rhinoc reveals Vengon was the target all along, and the fight begins. Using his knowledge of his rival's style, Rhinoc traps Vengon and his Ultralinks in containment cubes. He even captures Steel and flees, but not before Max throws Steel like a turbo rang to track the ship. Inside, Steel goes full hacker, messes with the systems, and causes the ship to crash in the desert. He and Vengon escape on one of the Ultralink bikes, but Rhinoc is hot on their tail. They hide in an abandoned mine, but the hunter triggers a cave-in. In a tight spot, Vengon activates his teleporter and vanishes, leaving Steel behind. Max and Citro arrive to help, but are taken down. After an energy boost from Max, Steel activates a new mode, Clone Mode. Suddenly, an army of Steels surrounds Rhinoc. Seeing the tables turn, Vengon returns to finish the fight, defeats Rhinoc, and traps him in a cube. But a good villain always has a trick up his sleeve. Rhinoc uses a bomb, escapes, and disappears over the horizon, vowing revenge.
Vengon, if it's the last thing I do.
The villain Dredd has a huge problem. He has the Turbo Star, a weapon capable of destroying Machino, but he's missing a power source. And the power source? Max Steel himself. Over at N-Tech, Commander Forge forbids the use of the weapon, but Max, inspired by a hologram prank Berto pulled, cooks up a heist movie-worthy plan: steal the Turbo Star from Dredd. To do this, he stages the escape of one of Dredd's agents, Knot, and follows him to the villain's secret underwater base. Inside, the show begins. Max uses uses Berto's gadget to create a ton of holographic copies of himself in various turbo modes. While Dredd and Naught waste time fighting the holograms, the real Max, in stealth mode, makes his move. He swaps the real Turbo Star with a fake and gets out. Dredd, furious, pursues Max in a jet, and our hero fakes his own death in a massive explosion.
Max Steel! Gone?
Believing he's won, Dredd returns to his base full of pride, only to discover the Turbo Star he has is a cheap hologram. His rage is so immense that he activates his final trump card, a colossal warship called the Doombringer, and launches a missile straight at Copper Canyon. As N-Tech's forces try to hold off the ship, Steel proves he's the Tech King. He hacks the missile mid-flight and redirects it back to sender. Boom! The Doombringer explodes and sinks. Max dives in and retrieves the real Turbo Star from the wreckage, but the celebration is short-lived. Back at base, Commander Forge is furious about his insubordination, confiscates the weapon, and gives Max a major chewing out. The moral of the story: they have the weapon to win the war, but they're forbidden to use it. Things just got serious. Commander Forge gathers the N-Tech team to announce the inevitable. Machino's fleet is on its way for the final invasion. The plan is risky: breach the shields of the mothership, the Alpha Link, and blow its generator. On the other side, Machino is also preparing, ready to use a powerful energy source that, ironically, was once used to defeat him. Max, of course, insists on using the Turbo Star, but gets a hard no from his Uncle Forge and his mother, Molly. And then comes the gut punch. They reveal that very weapon is the reason Max's father is gone. There's no time to process the family drama, because the first wave of alien ships tears through Earth's sky. Amid the chaos, Max's friends, Sydney, Kirby, and Butch, are being evacuated. Max manages to call Sydney, lies that he's safe, and hears her say she has faith that Max Steel will save everyone. If only she knew. The invasion begins for real, and N-Tech reveals its ace in the hole, the Daedalus, a gigantic flying platform that can turn invisible and sets an ambush for the enemy fleet. A frantic battle erupts in the skies. The Daedalus then transforms, revealing an insane cannon that fires an energy beam and manages to damage the Alpha Link's shields. Furious, Machino doesn't let it slide and retaliates with his own Alpha cannon. The shot is devastating. The Daedalus takes a direct hit and begins to plummet from the sky like a meteor. Seeing his mother and uncle about to be flattened, Max doesn't think twice. He activates flight mode and rockets toward the free-falling platform in a desperate attempt to prevent the tragedy.
Rocket! More power, Max!
N-Tech's forces are locked in a desperate battle against Machino's colossal ship, the Alpha Link, which is about to connect with Earth and cause unimaginable destruction. Things are looking grim. Inside, Max and Steel discover a horrifying truth. Machino is using Max's missing father, Jim McGrath, as a living turbo energy battery. It's like using Darth Vader to charge your phone. Machino himself appears to rub it in their faces, boasting that his greatest former enemy is now his most useful tool. The fight begins, but Machino is on another level and completely overpowers Max. Just when all seems lost and Machino is about to deliver the final blow, he's suddenly frozen solid by a beam of ice. And who shows up to save the day? None other than Jim McGrath, now free and wearing his own turbo suit. Father and son team up, combining their turbo energies into a single overwhelming attack that completely disintegrates Machino. With the Alpha Link self-destructing, the N-Tech team loses Max's signal and begins to fear the worst. But emerging from the explosion is the Turbo Star escape pod, carrying Max, Steel, and Jim back, safe and sound.